All right, welcome everyone. So I'm Marine from ISTO. For those who don't know me, this is the webinar about the SDGs. So we are going to deep dive into the SDGs. For those who followed the other webinar, so we had one in real life in Paris in October last year, and we had another. So we had a webinar in June this year during the week of Fair and Sustainable Tourism for. So this is basically what follows, what comes next. So this is a collaboration with Via Via and with Route 2030. So we are with Jan and Sarah today, and maybe they want to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I am Jan. Welcome everyone. Marine, will you give another introduction, or can we start then with the session?
No, I think you can start. Anything is so everybody has the possibility to speak. We can see you if you want. Just be careful with your microphone if there's a lot of noise around you, so that it doesn't disturb the whole meeting. That's it. But of course, there will be times for everyone to speak.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Indeed. Again, welcome. And as Marine said, if you want to ask a question or have an idea or anything, you please raise your hand or use a chat. We're doing this virtual, but let's make it as physical as possible. So welcome from ISTO Route 2030 and Via Via. This SDG webinar is a collaboration of these three organizations. And as Marine said, we're going to deep dive. So we will really look at the SDGs and how the SDGs can help to shape your strategy, your goals, and your actions to become, let's say, future-proof to deal with sustainable transformation. Who are we? We are a strategic sustainability consultancy, creative change agency, and we like to work with the SDGs. I understood that some of you also participated in the previous session, the SDG webinar and the session in Paris. We use 5 steps for shaping our sustainability strategy, starting with insight, dynamics, course, story, and impact. In the previous session, we focused on insight and dynamics. What we did was we had focus on these 2 steps and apply systems thinking to broaden your mindset, creating new insight in sustainability. We spoke about an SDG mapping, which might help you to get insight in your strengths and weaknesses regarding the SDGs. We also looked at your why and sharpen your mission and vision. And second, dynamics. We defined your most important stakeholders and what matters to them most. So why is it important to interact with your stakeholders on sustainability topics? How can you work on sustainability culture in your organization, etc. This is a quick recap what we did in the session of the 2nd of June. Today, we want to focus on different methodologies to build up the sustainability strategy based on the SDGs by setting priorities and goals. So main questions: what direction should I go as an organization? How do I set up achievable goals that matter? And how can I keep engaging with my stakeholders? We understand it are still some turbulent times. Last session we spoke about the COVID-19 crisis. So it's even more important to look to the future and to look at your main sustainability challenges. So as a starter, we would like to invite you to an online platform called menti.com. You can scan the QR code here, or you can browse to menti.com and fill in the code 279713 and 0. You will receive 2 questions. 1, who are you? What is your name and your organization? You can always fill in your country, where are you based. And 2, what are your main sustainability challenges? It can be on a lot of topics, but we would like to know your main sustainability challenges. So 1, 2, or 3 sustainability challenges that you are facing today, where you see are very, very important for your organization. So again, go to menti.com, fill in the code, or scan the QR code. Introduce yourself by telling your name and organization and your main sustainability challenges. If something is not clear or you have an issue, you can always write something in the chat, and then we'll help you on that.
I have a question actually. So we answer the 2 questions in the same space, right?
Yes.
Should we write 1 and 2 or just everything?
You can write everything just in one.
In one block, okay.
Yeah.
Can I have the code, please, again? I was just busy to make notes of the code, but I have.
Here it is.
Nice. Okay.
197130.
Write it in the chat maybe.
So I see the first responses come in. So your name and organization, maybe your country where you're based, and what are your main sustainability challenges? In the meanwhile, some people are still joining the session. For the new people, we are now in an online tool called menti.com. So you can go to menti.com and use the code. Here you see it in the screen, 2797130. And we ask you 2 questions where you can fill in the same block, your name and organization, and what are your main sustainability challenges.
Sorry, in case I didn't write the challenge, our challenge, can I add it or can I have to do it again?
Or you can tell us now, Annabella.
Oh, okay. My main challenge in that case, we are a huge organization. So I have also one colleague that is there, Luis. And so our challenge is maybe a little bit different. In my particular case that I'm working in tourism, my main challenge is to organize programs that can go hand in hand with sustainability challenges, meaning climate changing, economic challenge, social challenges, basically is that.
Okay, thank you, Annabella, for sharing.
You're welcome.
In the meanwhile, we see some other challenges. Try to create a structure where sustainability refer the environment and the work issues by Sarah. We have Georgios from IGAT ULB facing sustainability challenges when it comes to the mobility activities and the ecological footprint of traveling, students and staff. We have Gudrun Ronald, Ministry of German-speaking community in Belgium, with the challenge of supporting and convincing hosts in tourism industry to invest in sustainability, mostly family-driven micro-enterprises. We have Rosario, the University of Evora, a member of ISTO, to be an example of sustainable professor and investigator as a challenge. So you see there are various challenges. Hannelore from Via Via, transforming entrepreneurship in tourism into more social, circular and sustainable entrepreneurship. And then there's Jonathan, main sustainability challenges, changing the idea of what we mean, of what means sustainability when we talk about cancer survivor. So you see a lot of different aspects when we speak about sustainability challenges. There are a lot more. Of course, we also talked about it in the previous session. When it comes to sustainability, it's a very holistic concept. Especially when you look at the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, there are a lot of dimensions when it comes to sustainability. For example, good health and well-being, as said here, but also the environment, climate impact, same for peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships, all kind of topics when it comes to sustainability. Now, if you're not finished yet with this, filling in your name and organization or your main sustainability challenges, you still have time for this, but in the meanwhile, we go back to the PowerPoint presentation and we'll do a short recap of the last session.
Yeah, so last session we looked at the definition of sustainable development, and as you can see in your challenges, all the aspects come back again. The definition we looked at was the one of the Brundtland report, and it says it's development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. We also saw that this was a very vague definition, and it was difficult for organizations to go into action. So that's why the United Nations came up with Agenda 2030 and the 5 Ps who are the backbone of this Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. So the 5 Ps were planet, people, prosperity, partnerships, and peace. I hope you remember this. And for every of these P, we have some goals, some sustainable development goals. For example, just a short recap, for the planet level, we have, for instance, clean water and climate action. For the people level, we have things about poverty and hunger. We have peace, justice, and strong institutions. For the prosperity level, there are things like decent work, reduced inequality. And the cherry on top of the cake are these partnerships, which are very important because sustainable development cannot be attained alone. We need everybody to go for these goals. These are the 17 goals again. And so today we are going to use these goals to get you started to shape your sustainability strategy.
To sharpen our way of shaping a sustainability strategy and using the SDGs, we also look, or will look today at design thinking steps. You probably heard from design thinking before, which is a process that organizations use to shape new products, new services. And we will use some of these steps, which what we call SDG design thinking, to help us to define direction and goals for the organizations here on board. We start with, what do you want to solve? The problem definition. For who do you want to solve which problem? Empathy building. Which ideas could solve the problem? Ideation. What exactly is a solution? So the prototyping. And then testing. What does the user think about your solution? And then the circle goes round and round, back to problem definition, empathy building, etc. So you'll see in this session, some of these steps come back, and which might help you also in the future to look at these steps to shape your strategy and direction. First, problem definition, creating insight. So this is also what we did last time. Map what you're already doing, developing your mission, your vision. So most of your organizations have a vision and a mission. But what is your cause? What do you believe and why do you exist? That's maybe the most important question. Why do you exist? And what is your vision and mission? For this, what is important or what you can do is start with an SDG mapping. So a lot of activities, what you do, how do they relate with the SDGs? This is not really a difficult exercise, but it can be an eye-opener for you. So the mapping is an important first step to define your possible problems. What we also did is to look at the systems thinking iceberg, which is also important to define the main problems, but also the underlying structures. For example, you are an organization. It's 2020, a year of crisis, the COVID-19 crisis. What is tourism in 2020? What just happened this year? What are the underlying trends? What are the underlying structures? And what assumptions, beliefs, and values do people hold about tourism in 2020? But you can also look at tourism in 2025 and predict together with people inside and outside your organization what tourism in 2025 or 2030 might be. So we had some interesting outcomes from the exercise that we did with you last time. And this can be very, very important to start your problem definition. What is the problem? What are the trends and structures that you see as a problem? This will create insight, and this will be very important for the next steps.
After you looked inside your organization, you mapped, you did an SDG mapping, you looked at your mission and vision and you sharpened it. It's important to engage with your stakeholders to get support for your sustainability strategy. Your stakeholders know best what are their main challenges and what the things are you need to focus on. So together with your stakeholders, you prioritize the most important SDGs or company-specific themes that have to be in your sustainability strategy. Last time we saw you can do this by mapping your stakeholders on, for example, a power interest matrix, as you can see on the slide, and try to engage with the stakeholders who have the most power and are most interested. Why should you engage with your stakeholders? Short recap. For risk management issues, for sustainability compliance, for market development, for innovation, and very important for strategy shaping, you need your support of your stakeholders. How can you do that? You can organize a stakeholder panel or conduct surveys, interviews, but also an informal talk or just a phone call can also be enough. We will do in a second an exercise empathy mapping. That's really to listen to your stakeholder and try to feel what they are thinking and feeling and doing and why they are doing these things. And you can also do a hybrid form, so mix up all kinds of stakeholder consultations. But keep in mind, it doesn't have to be really difficult. You can also ask your stakeholders their priorities via a call or an email or a small survey. What can you do with this information? So you ask your stakeholders, what do you think that is the most important for our sustainability strategy? You can make a materiality matrix, and materiality just means the topics that matter for your stakeholders. So we define material or important topics as those who have or may have a significant impact on the organization's finances or operations, have or may have significant impact on the environment or society now, but also in the future, and can can influence the assessments, decisions, and actions of stakeholders and shareholders. So how can that look like? It's like, for example, a materiality matrix you see now. This is one of Unilever. And on the y-axis, you see the stakeholder importance. And on the x-axis, you see the business impact. This is actually the most important things for business. So in the right upper corner, you'll see all the topics that are material or the most important. For instance, for Unilever, it's climate change and packaging and waste. I'll show you another example from Schiphol Airport. They did just the same exercise. On the y-axis, you have the stakeholders, the external stakeholders, and on the x-axis, you have the internal stakeholders. And also there, the most important topics are security and safety, noise, and CO2 and air pollution. Sorry, it's in Dutch because I couldn't find it in English. Another way to do it, because we are in an SDG deep dive webinar, is not using company-specific teams like in the previous materiality matrices, but to use the SDGs and maybe also use company-specific teams. So you can use the combination. First, ask your stakeholders what SDGs are the most important, and then ask them, and what company-specific topics are the most important. And then you get something, a matrix that looks like this. I will show you another example we did with the Royal Football Association in Belgium. And as you can see, they found the most important topic was SDG 3, good health and well-being. It was as well for external stakeholders as for the internal stakeholders. And you can also see the topic raising awareness about sports, the number 3. It also was the most important company-specific topic. So you can see there might be differences between the topics and the SDGs, but sometimes they overlap. So now today, we would like to do a kind of such an exercise with you guys. So we will make an SDG impact and opportunity matrix to see the most important SDGs according to you guys. How are we going to do that? We will again use menti.com, and there will be 2 questions. For every SDG, you have to score where you believe your organization has the greatest impact at this moment, from 0 to 10, very high impact, and score the SDGs from 0 to 10 that could represent a business opportunity for your organization in the future. Again, from 0 to 10. So if you go again to menti.com and you use this code or use the QR code, you will see these questions. It's a little bit difficult, but take your time because it's really important exercise. And if you want more information on the sub-targets in the SDGs, you can go to this link, globalgoals.org. And there you'll see the SDGs and the sub-targets if you scroll down. Maybe I'll show you the...
As Sarah said, this is not the easiest exercise. There are also 17 goals, so quite a lot. But it's important to really look at all these SDGs and to see what is the impact that you have right now as an organization, and what are the opportunities for the future. So on this website that Sarah is sharing now, the globalgoals.org, you can go, for example, to gender equality, scroll down, and there you have new insights, but also the targets. What does gender equality mean? For example, 5.1, and discrimination against women and girls, 5.2, etc. As you know, there are 17 goals, but also 169 targets or sub-targets. So this might also inspire you to fill in the exercise where you are asked to look at the impact of your organization, but also at the opportunities for the future. So I shared again the code in the chat. It's best to go to menti.com again or refresh your browser, fill in the code, and there you see the screen for every SDG on impact and opportunity. We propose to give you around 15 minutes for this, and then we'll come back. This is important because we will build further on the results of today for the next steps of this session. If there are any questions, you can always raise your hand or ask something in the chat.
You said 15 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, so around 15 minutes.
Okay.
If you finish earlier, that's good. But
Thank you.
Okay, we see that some organizations, some people already are finished. We still have around 5 minutes left. So if you're not there yet, please hurry up. Okay, we still have 2 minutes left. We see that 12 people already filled in, 13 now. You see also if someone is finished and pushes the finish button, you see that the impact opportunity matrix is changing a little bit here and there. So we saw in the beginning that SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, was let's say winning as the biggest impact and the biggest opportunities, but it's changed a little bit towards SDG 4 on quality education and SDG 17 on partnership, which is now in the lead, let's say, as the biggest impact and opportunity. We still have a few people left who need to fill in. So let's say 1 more minute now. So try to wrap up. Okay. All right. Let's wrap up. Some people are still finishing, but try to do that as fast as possible. In the meanwhile, we see the results. So in the upper right corner, you see the SDGs with the biggest impact and the biggest opportunities, which is SDG 17 on partnership. Then you have SDG 8 as more opportunities there on decent work and economic growth. 4 on quality education, followed by SDG 5 and 7, gender equality and affordable and sustainable energy. The least opportunities and the least impact we see there as SDG 9 on industry, innovation and infrastructure, but also 14, 15, life below water, life on land, and also number 2 on zero hunger, which scores less on opportunities and impacts. Now, this is an interesting result, and we will go further on this in the next exercises and the next steps, shaping our sustainability strategy. And I also want to share you
Your microphone is not turned on.
Yes, Jan, we cannot hear you. I don't know why.
Okay, there was a small issue, but we're back on track. So I will share my screen. That will be better. Okay. So, I assume you can now see my screen?
Yes, yes, we see.
Yes. Okay, so a similar exercise was done by some other industries where they also saw the business impact and opportunity. Here you see that decent work and economic growth, so as a G8 was also ranked quite high. Life below water, very low. And in between you have industry innovation infrastructure, which was kind of low in the results of this group. Quality education is somewhere in the middle, and partnerships for the goals are in the lower left quadrant. Now, if you look at top business impacts by industry, you see, for example, that the biggest impact the chemical sector sees is SDG 30 on climate action. The healthcare sector, for example, sees the biggest impact on good health and well-being. And if we search documents of the UNWTO for the travel industry, we see that SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, but also SDG 12 on responsible consumption and production, and SDG 14, life below water, are seen as SDGs which have a very, very high impact in the industry. Of course, we are with a lot of various organizations in the industry, going from organizations, tour operators, etc. So this compared with the results we just had is quite interesting. So decent work and economic growth is in both exercises quite high ranked. On the other hand, this group scored life below water quite low. And it's not surprising as such, because these are holistic goals. And one of the next steps that we're going to do is trying to translate these goals. What does life below water or decent work and economic growth mean for your organization? So that's why an SDG translation in your context is very, very important. Now to do that, and as a second step in SDG design thinking, we look at stakeholder empathy. So one of your main stakeholders is, for example, your customer. The customer where you provide services and activities to. Now, what does your customer think about, let's say, SDG 17 or 4 or 8? Let's pick those three. That's what do they think? What do they feel? What do they expect from you regarding these SDGs? And second, what do they do regarding these SDGs? This will result, or you can dilute, the values and the habits of the stakeholder customer. So again, you have some top SDGs, and I leave the opportunity to you to choose between SDG 17, partnerships for the goals, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, or SDG 4 on quality education, to look at the customer as an important stakeholder. What do they think about one of these SDGs? What do they feel? What do they do? And what are the values and the habits which you can dilute from that? For this, we again go to menti.com, and you refresh your browser or use the QR code with this code, and you'll get these three questions. So think about the customer as a stakeholder. What do they think, feel? So what do they expect? Second, what do they do? And which values and habits can you dilute from that regarding one of the top SDGs that you just filled in the impact opportunity matrix, SDG 17, SDG 8, or SDG 4. Again, you can use the Global Goals website to look into the sub-targets to get inspired. We're not taking too much time for this, so let's say around 5 minutes to think about this. So what do they think and feel? What do they do? And which values and habits can you dilute from that? If you have any questions or it's not clear, you can always ask us in the chat and then we'll help you further. So go to menti.com, maybe refresh your browser, use the code, and then if you're finished, then we'll go further on this. It's not the easiest exercise. You really have to go into the mind of your customer, let's say, and try to look in what they do, think, and feel about this SDG. This is a very important step also when it comes to empathy, to really go into, how do you say, the mind or the feeling that your stakeholder has. So we'll give you a few more minutes and then we will proceed.
There is a question from Jana. She says, I feel it's difficult to answer this question for my organization because we do not really have customers.
Sorry, say it again, Marin?
It's in the chat. So Jana says it's difficult to answer this question for her organization because they don't really have customers.
Okay. Well, Jana, maybe if it's too difficult to have customers, think about other key stakeholders. So the last session and in the beginning of this session, we did a short recap. So what are the stakeholders that you have to manage closely that are in the right upper corner, so that are important for your organization? Think about a key stakeholder. It doesn't have to be a customer, but it can be another stakeholder that you see as a very important stakeholder for your organization, who has influence to your organization and might also be important regarding to sustainability topics. So use that stakeholder and the same questions. What do that stakeholder or that stakeholder group thinks about these SDGs? What do they do about this SDG? And try to dilute some values and habits. So again, it's not easy, but it's trying to be in the shoes of your stakeholder. The easiest thing, of course, is to ask your stakeholders. That's through a stakeholder consultation or a survey or anything else. But again, this stakeholder empathy map might be very inspirational during a stakeholder consultation or doing it with internal people and really go into in the mind of your key stakeholder. And it doesn't have to be customer, but it can be another stakeholder as well. So this might help. Okay, so it's also a good exercise to do later in a later stage, but this might help. In the meanwhile, we're looking if there are answers ready. As said, we have here create real experiences with local partnership. Okay, we see this. It's indeed a value, or we see another one. Our stakeholders need more details on the objectives in order to be able to act better on the territory. This happens because the objectives are very heterogeneous and generic. All right. What do they think? Interesting and important. What do they feel? Proud to participate in the SDGs. What do they do? Expecting an eventual participation. All right, very good. Maybe we wait a few more seconds. Okay, we continue with the next question. So this was, what does your customer think and feel regarding the SDG? We'll keep that with us. In the meanwhile, new answers come in. Next question is, what does your customer do regarding this SDG? In the meanwhile, I will go to the other answer. So for example, think they're motivated to contribute. What do they feel that the SDGs are important to support and can help their particular situation? Another one that help us to know and have more clear our target and the community around us. Okay. What do they do? Is the next question. So it's kind of similar to what do they feel and think about these SDG, but more important even is what do they do regarding this SDG? And try for this question, look really into one of the top SDGs that you chose in the impact opportunity matrix. So for example, what does your customer or other key stakeholder do regarding SDG 4 quality education? Or what does your key stakeholder do regarding SDG 17 partnerships for the goals? Or what does your customer or key stakeholder do regarding SDG 8, decent work and economic growth? Again, try to be in the shoes of your key stakeholder and also dilute some values and habits for that. So some responses come in. So what does your customer or key stakeholder do regarding an SDG? They build sustainability councils in their communities to implement actions, all right? Volunteering in a school, buy stuff of local people, SDG 4 and 8. Other ideas are welcome. This is again to really go into the mind of your stakeholder and try to empathize with them. Actually, empathize is a synonym for sympathize or feel togetherness or identify with your stakeholder. And it's a very important step because a lot of organizations miss this, and this is also linked to the why of your organization. Why do you exist? You exist for your stakeholders. They take use of your activities or your products. So that's why this is a very important step. Another one comes in, participate to the efforts of SDG. So I think we can go, you still have time for this, but we can meanwhile go to the next step. After looking at the impact on opportunities of the SDGs, the main SDGs or the main prior SDGs, looking at the stakeholder empathy, what is the next step? So for this, we're sharing our screen again, and Sarah will guide you to that.
So as Jan, SDG impact and opportunities. Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So as Jan said, after you elaborated an SDG mapping, you sharpened your mission and vision in step 1. Then you did an SDG impact and opportunity exercise, and you listened and engaged with your stakeholders. You get a list of a few SDGs, maybe 4 or 5, that's ideal. And that are the ones you're going to work with next. What is the first step you need to do? You have to start shaping your strategy with these 4 or 5 prior SDGs. And the first step is to translate this SDG into the context of your organization. What do we mean by that? Try to translate it in your own words and in your own company specific context. I got some examples for you to show what we mean. The example is on SDG 2, Zero Hunger, because it's a quite difficult SDG for a lot of organizations. And I would like to show you that it isn't really that difficult to make a translation. The first one is from Unilever. They say on SDG 2, their translation is, our mission is to provide products that taste good, make feel people good, and are a force for good. We're improving our products to make them more responsibly delicious, at the same time as making it easier for people to choose nutritious diets. We are committed to doubling the proportion of our portfolio that meets the highest nutritional standards.
Yeah, another translation on SDG 2, Zero Hunger, is from PITPA, Drinking Water Utility Company. And then they translate SDG 2 in, we work together with the agricultural sector and raise awareness about the pesticide issue to ensure sustainable and resilient food production systems.
Another translation is from the Flanders Education Department. The school pursues a policy on sustainable and accessible food, both in the school kitchen, canteen, and beyond. The students learn about sustainable dietary patterns. In addition, the school takes action with regard to hunger, healthy food, and food waste.
Next one from the Royal Belgian Football Association, a sport organization. They translated SDG 2 in, we promote healthy food for all football players and fans and apply fair trade as purchase criteria whenever purchasing food.
And the last example from IKEA. We provide products and solutions that enable customers to cut food waste and offer healthier and more sustainable food options, minimizing food waste in IKEA restaurants, bistros, and cafes. So as you can see, these are all very different translations from the same Sustainable Development Goal, all aiming to the sub-targets of SDG 2, Zero Hunger. And now we would like to check, first another example of Schiphol Airport. It's unfortunately, it's in Dutch, but they also took their prior SDGs, SDG 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 17, and they translated it. For example, on SDG 12, they focus on a circular airport. Also, they are focusing on partnerships in the airport sustainable declaration. So this is an example. I have one more example of Interpret. You can check it out on their website, and we are now going to make an exercise so you can check it out to have some extra inspiration, because now it's up to you, and we would like to challenge you to try to translate one SDG into the context of your organization. So what does this SDG mean for your organization? We will do this again by Mentimeter. Try to formulate your translation maybe on a piece of paper or in a Word document, because you will need it later in this session. And maybe choose again from the 3 main SDGs, SDG 8, 17, and 4. And write it in your answer which SDG you try to translate. So you can go again to menti.com. Or scan the QR code and try to write something. Maybe we will get back to you in 10 minutes. And if there are questions, please use the chat.
Yeah, so for example, I am organization X, and I will try to make a translation now on SDG 4, quality education. So I write SDG 4, and I write down my translation. What does it mean in the context of my organization? As I said in the beginning, the SDGs are quite holistic, 17 goals to transform the world on sustainable development. But what does it mean for your organization? What does SDG 4, 17, or 8 means? So try to be very short in this, in the sense that it doesn't have to be a short sentence, but what pops in your mind, what SDG means for you.
You can also check the website globalgoals.com. If you want to review the SDG and the sub-targets, they can give you some inspiration.
In the meanwhile, we share our screen from the previous exercise where we asked, what does your customer or key stakeholder do regarding one of the SDGs? And there are several answers given, linked with several SDGs. And this might help you in the translation of the SDGs. For example, one of the answers was, our members volunteer in the area to promote culture and the environment. They work within local communities to maintain social bonds and promote the beauty of the area. Another one, SDG 12, give more information on local practices, for example, economic, cultural, and social practices. Make change in many things to helping with the SDG, and that make us a guideline to do. So the insights you get from the stakeholder empathy map might guide you or help you in translating the SDGs. Okay, we have already received some translations. For example, SDG 8, empower local communities in developing sustainable tourism products and policies. Another one, Uyacha, I don't know if I pronounce it well, works to improve customer travel experiences by responsibly developing ethical, accessible tourism services locally and to increase opportunities available for empowering our community members to sustainably enhance their livelihoods. Very good. Another SDG translation on SDG 15, which scored a little bit lower in the matrix, but nevertheless is an important one also for some of your organizations, definitely. Their translation is organize tourism programs that educate clients about the importance and protection of life inland. Very good. And then we have SDG 4 translation. Oh, it scrolls down and up. I will wait just a little bit when it scrolls back. SDG 4, offer quality vocational education to current and future tourism professionals, as well as raising awareness in the tourism sector about sustainable development and the need for sustainable tourism. So these are some good examples already for the SDGs mentioned as a good translation. We wait a little bit longer, and I'm sure there are other people who have similar good examples. I have one more here. Provide a more inclusive educational system with a stronger focus on social problems and enhance sustainable development by educating students about it. Very well. We wait a little bit longer for some other translations, and then we will continue for the next steps. Okay, we have another one on SDG 14. Work together with other organizations. It means for us to have a bigger impact on the local community and have a chance to offer a better services for our social customers. It also links to indeed SDG 17, I guess, on partnerships. So again, these are very good translations. Keep in mind the SDGs, the priority SDGs you have. Keep in mind the stakeholder approach and the empathy. Keep in mind your vision, your why of your organization, and use all these insights for translating your SDGs. Now, if we go back to the PowerPoint, I will just quickly change to the PowerPoint again. Now, of course, if you have goals, SDG goals, you translated the goals, it's important to formulate SMART goals. Why? To get everyone on the same page, make progress visible, evaluate of performance and possibly to adjust, but also make your impact clear. And that's also very important. We call it SMART goals. You probably heard from it before, SMART. We don't want to set up stupid goals. But what do we mean with SMART goals? What is specific? So what do we want? How can we measure it? Can we, for example, collect data about it? Is it attainable? Is it feasible? Is it realistic? Is it supported by the organization and the stakeholders? So is it aligned with the strategy? Is it relevant? And then last but not least, when do we want to achieve the goal? Is it time bound? So these are important things to keep in mind when you, from your translation, from your goal, from your SDG, to make your SDG smart, to make your goal smart. An example again, so we use the example of Unilever, Zero Hunger. You saw the translation. Take your own translation and try to make it smart. So here, their goal on SDG 2 is we're committed to doubling the proportion of our portfolio that meets the highest nutritional standards from 30% to 60% based on globally recognized dietary guidelines by 2021. So here you see that from the translation, there are some adjustments made to make the translation of this SDG smarter. So that's a very important and one of the last steps before really executing your strategy to make your translations, to make your goals smart. So as one of the last exercises in this round, we will challenge you to formulate a SMART goal for your SDG translation. So if you share the translation, you might wrote it down on a piece of paper or in a document. Look again to your translation and try to formulate a SMART goal, looking at specific, what do we want, specific purpose, measurable, how can you measure it? Is it realistic? Is it attainable? How is it attainable? Is it relevant to your strategy, to your organization, to your why? And is it time bound? When do you want to achieve the goal? So it's not in this phase that you have to keep in mind all of these aspects, but try to be as realistic as possible and link it to this formulate a SMART goal. So again, go to menti.com, use the code, the previous code, so it just continues, and try to formulate the SMART goal for your SDG translation. Again, if there are any questions, please raise your hand or use the chat in the Zoom. So again, to also answer the question of Marie, SMART, what do we mean with that? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay, first answers come in. One is by 2025, we work together with sustainable partners for all our products. Another one is G17, define a local action group representative of the tourism sector to define sustainability indicators that make sense for agents to support the process of monitoring sustainable development. All right. Another goal, we want to support 3 destinations to reach a certification for sustainable tourism destinations and participate in the local sustainability council by the end of 2023. You see here already a big difference between the translation of the SDGs that you did in a previous exercise, and here make it smarter. So this is really important also for the execution of your sustainability strategy, to really make it as smart as possible. In a first step, it's quite difficult, but also this is might be interesting to do it together with some stakeholders, internal, external stakeholders, and together make it as smart as possible. We have a few more minutes and then we will continue in the slides.
I can hear you, Jan.
All right. We see also a SMART goal regarding to develop some sustainable development indicators for the formations in the university. So there are several ways to make it smart. You also saw that you can use every letter of the word SMART to make to process your goal. But it's important to do this exercise also for the future steps. While you're continuing making your goals smart, we will go again to the slides and go to the next step. In the previous SDG webinar, we spoke about several ways of brainstorming for actions. And one of the ways was to look at several ambition levels. So to brainstorm for actions in line with your SMART goal, you can use the 4 ambition levels on communicate, activate, innovate, and transform. The first level is use your priority teams or your SDGs, your SMART goal, to design and raise awareness within your organizations. For example, with a campaign or another communication plan, really linking to one or more of your SMART SDG goals. And next ambition level is use your SMART goals to define actions and link them to your strategic objectives. A higher ambition level is use your SDG goals to reshape your own strategy together with your stakeholders. And then a last ambition level to really transform, use the SDG goals as a transformation tool. How can your organization transform to become future-proof? So really thinking out of the box actions that are really looking at the future of tourism, tourism in 2030, what does it mean? And how can you as an organization be one of the key actors, the players to transform the industry? So these are all ways how you can brainstorm in actions in line with your SMART goal. Another one, and keeping in mind the principles and the vision of Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, is looking at the integrated, indivisible, and universal approach of the SDGs. For example, you have an action linked with your SMART goal. How does it relate, or how can it cope with one of or more of the SDGs? An example. I am organization X, and I chose SDG 13 as one of the SDGs where I have the biggest impacts and where I see the biggest opportunities in the future. So that is one of my prior SDGs. For this SDG, I made an own translation and a SMART goal. On this SMART goal, I am thinking about actions, and one of the actions can be to install solar panels or to work with solar panels. Now, in line with the vision and the principles of Agenda 2030, we have to think about how is this action, the solar panel, sustainable, in the sense that how can we work together as an organization with other organizations, for example, SDG 17, to even build or make more solar panels, to install more solar panels. Another one, how can I cope with biodiversity linked with my solar panels? Where do I install them? Do I integrate them in one way or another with nature? How can I work with cities around these solar panels? Which materials are they built from? Are there solar panels with related to SDG 12 with a circular design? Can you recycle it, etc., etc.? So the goal is here to place your action in the middle of the circle, of this SDG circle, and look at all the SDGs from an indivisible and integrated approach. This is very important, and this is also in line with the Agenda 2030, and it will make your action stronger. It will also challenge you to look to several dimensions of sustainable development, and not on, for example, only the planet dimension, or only the people dimension, or only the prosperity dimension. So this is a very interesting exercise that you can do. Once you define your SMART goals, you can brainstorm two actions, place these actions in the middle of the SDG circle, and it will boost and it will make your actions stronger. Now, as a last step in this SDG webinar, we propose to work some things out in breakout rooms. So we will divide you in groups of 3 people. We'll do this randomly, and we share 3 questions. First question, share your SDG translation. It doesn't have to be finished yet, and your SMART goal with each other. What do you have in common? What are the differences? How do you think about these translations, the SMART goals? And then next, share what could be the first step or action that you have to take to realize this SMART goal. So think about also the actions that we set as a last step and as the G circle. So 3 questions: share your SDG translation, your SMART goal. What do you have in common? What are the differences? and share what could be the first step or actions you have to take to realize this goal. Sarah will guide you in groups of 3. Give us just 1 second for that, and then you will be automatically asked to go into a breakout room where you will meet your colleague.
Okay.
Green.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Hi. I was saying that I don't know if the first question.
Excuse me, what did you say?
That I don't know if I remember the first question.
You know, I was actually thinking the same. Yes, I would need
Goal, but so this is supposed that we discuss this orally, or shall we write, or?
it's supposed
Orally, I
to be group
think.
discussion, yes.
Okay, so I focus my idea on SDG 15 because it protects life on land. And one of the objectives was to create a program of nature tourism able to impact people or impact clients or educate clients for the protection of the environment by 2022, let's say so.
So is it a project that you are already working on, or is it something
Yes,
that's just an idea?
It is a project that I have for many years, that normally it started, but then for difficult reasons, for different reasons, it has been difficult to achieve so many clients because the majority of our clients, they are seniors. So sometimes this type of program is more difficult regarding active walking and so on. So it has been a difficulty, but it is one of the programs that we would like very much to implement here in the tourism department. And you?
Maybe Mohammed wants to speak?
Oh, yes.
Yes, of course. I can speak in French or in English.
Vous pouvez parler pour moi, vous pouvez parler en français. Pas de...
I don't know, we have a fourth person, Jonathan.
Yes, for me, that's very, we have a speak in English. That's the language
In
I'm
English?
happy.
That's
Yes,
fine.
please. Thanks.
No, okay, no problem. So it's a little different for us because in university in Morocco, particularly in Marrakesh, so we don't have a program for sustainable development. Maybe we have, I think we have a course, some courses in literature faculty, but in other structures of the university, we didn't have, we don't have programs of sustainable development. So it's different comparing to other institutions or organizations.
But you speak during the subjects, the different subjects that you teach or that the university teach, they speak about sustainable goals or not? So it's not in the...
Yes, yes, but I try to imagine the case or the situation. but unfortunately, we don't have a program or future aspiration in sustainable development for the moment.
But is it something you would like to implement?
Sorry?
Is it something that you would like to set up to implement? Maybe if you talk to your colleagues, or do you think that your colleagues would also want to speak more about the SDGs in classes?
Maybe, yeah, I think so. So I didn't try to research information about my colleagues, particularly in literature faculty, where I think they teach tourism and sustainable development. I'm specialized in management and economics. So I teach in National School of Trade and Management. So I interested in tourism many years ago, but no, I didn't have any idea about sustainable development. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's a start. Jonathan, you want to speak? Maybe you want to share some thoughts?
Oh yes, I want to show you our foundation, for example, for our SDG. Sorry for my English first. We helping with volunteers and survivors for cancer, and now we helping for the survivors make an option for working or make something for take money for the family. And in that case, we have a travel agency, and our travel agency helps in two different actions. First one, it's for show and teaching many things and many options for the people can to do something for make or take a shop. I know you're.
No, I'm not really following. Maybe.
Okay, so sorry for that again. In our travel agency, we teach many things for the people, the survivor cancer. Learn things of different things for want money.
So are you training cancer survivors to work in tourism? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For example, now we have a survivors with coffee plantation, and we made coffee tours, and we showed the people and the family how can they do for helping to the tourism people goes and take the tour in their plantations.
Jonathan, in which country are you working? Sorry, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, from Costa Rica.
Ah, Costa Rica, okay.
Funca Vida, right?
That's correct, Funca Vida.
Okay, so we have people from all over. It's nice. So Jonathan, if you have to pick one SDG and translate it, regarding your organization, what would you say?
The SDG now is the number 8. And
so which one is that?
The number 8. Just a second. I have the picture for that. So.
Don't worry.
Their work, I don't know. In English, I don't know.
That's difficult for that. We translate that in English. That's correct. And number 8.
Decent work and economic growth.
Decent work, yes.
Decent work and economic growth, exactly. Yes. And I have that idea for the number 8. In this year, made do support and training and different jobs to make courses every month. These courses made it with our people and volunteers of the organization. That's for helping the people in the organization.
Yeah, and helping them to work and get back to society.
Yes, that's correct. It's because in Costa Rica, the people with cancer, or survivors. Normally, society says, "Oh, that's a poor people. We can to try to help him," but not the foundation says you cannot to help him. Just only make the options of the survivor do something for their.
So is it something that you already do now, or is it a project that you're working on?
Actually, we're working with that until since 2008.
Okay, so it's something that's always going on.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I see that Jan has joined us. I don't know if Jan wants to say something.
No, I'm just going from one room to the other one to listen, and I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm just here to listen, and please continue the conversation.
Yes, so everybody has talked except for me. So even if I'm part of the organization, I'm going to speak about ISTO. So I think for ISTO, the most important SDG would be the last one with the partnerships. So SDG 17. This is really how I see the role of ISTO, is to connect people in order for them to be partners and help each other out. So I think this is also why we're doing, these workshops, these webinars, so that people can meet and talk, and maybe, eventually we will have more focused webinars and workshops on SDGs. We'll talk about this later. And then people with similar problems and similar wills and wishes in general can be in the same workshop and maybe exchange ideas and maybe become partners as well. So I think this is how I see the role of ISTO with the SDGs.
Okay, Sarah just shared the last question. What do you see as the first steps to realize a SMART goal or any goal that you have within your organization? For example, Marine shared SDG 17 as an important goal. I'm sure everyone or all the other organizations have important goals as well. But what do you see as the first steps, and it can be smart steps, to really realize that goal? Maybe take three more minutes to just quickly talk about that and inspire each other. And then we will go to the plenary session again.
Okay. Annabella, maybe you want to say something?
Well, about the SMART goals regarding the SDG 15, I think I already mentioned it is really to create by 2022 a nature tourism program able to educate people and let them know the importance of life inland. That is one of the goals, but if I speak, for instance, in my case, that I'm working in a foundation that has several areas. If I work, for instance, one SDG, which is the one, let me see, the quality, I don't, sorry.
Which number is it? Do you know?
Health and quality. That is also an SDG important because we have a program for health tourism, and that can also be, we can also try to implement the program with more strength. For the moment, unfortunately, for several reasons, including the COVID-19. Thermal spas are complicated, and so it has been in decreasing number of participants, but we are trying to implement them.
And what would be the first step to implement such a thing?
It's really a good question, but I think we already have that problem. So the thing is to give more awareness. I think it's mainly communication and awareness, and try also to bring new partners to the program. That is one of the most important points.
Mohammed, you said that it's the SDGs are quite new for you. So what would be the first step? So after this workshop, after this webinar, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think the first step will be to have the money. So if you want to realize any project, you should have money. We know actually governments over the world win off its support. So money is it's necessary to establish or to elaborate a project. After money, you want to have human resources to realize the project. Without human resources, you can't do anything. So I think we don't have time to explain a lot. So I can let Mr. Jonathan explain something if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for you.
Thank you for explaining about what support the foundation. That's correct.
Yeah. So what's the first step for you to implement something in order to reach the SDGs?
Okay, for the first step, we think about the people. That's the first thing. How can we come to do, or how can we come to helping other people? That's the first steps of the SDG. For example, that the special area of the people have the coffee plantations. We have to know and learn first us about the coffee plantations, and second ones, what's the needed or the needs that the family have for helping with the courses or lessons or volunteers to know about the plantations and everything about that. That's the first steps of beginning in that foundation.
Yeah, it makes sense. That you need to know what people actually need and want, and then so you can help them. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
actually, sorry for finish. Actually, for that idea, the foundation beginning the export coffee in this month.
Okay. So it's
that's the second step.
That's the second step. Okay. Yes. So then, yeah, I think we have to go back to.
They will be here in any minutes, and then we will wrap up. So also explaining the next steps, next phase, or what can be the next phase. I'm just looking. They will be here in a few seconds normally. Yeah. Okay, normally everyone's back. I hope the breakout rooms inspire you a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, but I invite you to continue these conversations. Also, ISTO might help you in delivering contacts. Also, if you can share your contact details with Marine, with ISTO, that might be helpful also to continue this conversation. But of course, this is not the end. We also want to wrap up very quickly. Our goal was to end around 6 o'clock Brussels time. So to wrap up, how to build an SDG strategy. We looked at the steps of SDG design thinking, starting with what is your problem? What is a problem definition? What is your why? What is your mission, your vision? And how can SDG mapping be a source of inspiration, a source of insight? Next step was looking at your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Who are your main key stakeholders? engage with them, find your prior SDGs with them, empathize with them, go into their shoes. What do they feel? What do they do? And dilute values from that. And next step, really try to use the insight of the impact and opportunity matrix. So what are your prior SDGs where you have the biggest impact and the biggest priorities, the biggest opportunities for the future? Look into the link with the stakeholder approach. Look into your values, into your mission, into your vision, into your why, and define your translations, your SDG translations, and make them smart. How smarter you can make them, how better you can use them in the future to define actions, to brainstorm about actions, and put them in the SDG circle. The last slides that we showed, how can your action be linked with the integrated, indivisible, and universal approach of the SDGs? We understand it's difficult to do that alone. You have the whole ISTO network. All organizations have challenges, have opportunities, have inspirational ideas. So we also invite you to keep on having these conversations virtual. You see now in COVID times, a lot of people are now used to work in virtual format. So these also have advantages to speak to each other, to share ideas, to share challenges on these kind of things. So this was really a short wrap up, how we come from problem definition to really define smart goals. As a last slide, we're looking also to the future. And I would like to give the word to Marine as well, to see what the next steps can be, working in collaboration with Via, with ISTO, with True 2030, and with you, of course.
Yes, thank you, Jan. Thank you, Sarah, as well. All the attendees. Thank you for being here, for attending this webinar. So basically, this was the last workshop, the last general workshop about SDGs. So we deep dived, it was a deep dive in now what we are going to do, still in collaboration with Route 2030 and Via. We're going to separate ISTO members into groups of members that share the same interests. For example, members who do accommodation, members, national authorities, for example. So this is really what we want to do. We want to connect members with similar interests and similar kind of works so that it can be a more focused workshop. So what we are going to offer you is a session of 3 webinars. So there will be 3 by the end of this year. It should be about accommodation, but we can still talk about this later with emails. So it will be what Ian calls a train the trainer series. So maybe he will want to say a few words about that later. What I wanted to say is, if you don't do accommodation, don't worry. The plan is for each kind of ISTO member to have a special session. So maybe now we are doing accommodation, but then in a few months, beginning of next year, it will be another kind of members. So don't worry, there won't be anyone left out. So that's the plan. Maybe Jan, you want to say something about how it's going to happen, the 3 webinars a session?
Yes, thank you, Marine. Yes, indeed. And you see also on the slide here, the end slide, we talked about insight, dynamics, and cores. But in the train-the-trainer sessions, we also want to focus on story and impact. So train-the-trainer, what we mean with that is not only for your organization, but also for your partner organizations to really become a trainer in sustainable development and SDGs. How can you use your insights also to help your partner organizations, your stakeholders in this? At the moment, we are looking at storytelling and communication reporting as a session. Another session on sustainability change management, how to use change management as a tool for sustainable transformation. and a next one on sustainability leadership and how to show leadership towards your stakeholders internally, but also towards your partners, etc. Because as a last point I want to raise, from these SMART goals, these SMART SDGs, it's important to communicate on that and to show your impact. And that will become more and more important in the future, to be transparent for yourself, but also for your stakeholders, to measure progress. And therefore communication and reporting is a very important topic. So we will continue with these topics in a more trainer-trainer approach. So it will be smaller groups. We will work also, we will work in sessions. So it will be less conference style, let's say, and more train-the-trainer style.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if any of you has questions. I wanted to say as well that I've been recording this webinar, so I can send it to you, or if you had colleagues who couldn't attend, I can send it. There is no problem. I know that Yen can send me the PowerPoint as well, so I can share it with you if you want to review some things, redo some exercises. So that's it for me. I don't know if someone wants to say something or ask a question. Don't be shy.
If there are no questions at the moment, please feel free to reach out also directly to us, or to Marine or to Annelore from Via for specific questions or more information. We're always happy to hear your thoughts as well. And let's continue the good work on sustainability. You already made a lot of progress, I'm sure about that. You know the SDGs, but it's a challenging agenda. We still have 10 years to reach them, but after that, new times will come. Yeah, feel free to also ask any questions afterwards when we share the presentation.
All right, thank you.